Is there extra pressure because you've been so good on the road courses to come out and perform?
Only for you guys, from you guys, but yeah.
If there is chatter about it, then the media is going to be talking about it, and people like me are going to be commenting about it, and I think that's what they like.
Welcome on to the Backstretch. I'm News 5's Heather Williams here in the infield at the Daytona International Speedway. It is race day, season opening Daytona 500. A lot of excitement in the air. I've actually been at the track since 4:45 this morning, so I could go through screening by the Secret Service because, of course, President Trump is going to be here at the track later this afternoon. It's been a big weekend, and unfortunately, our friend, our co-host, Chris Carrier, I talked to him before we came down to Daytona for this podcast, so we won't talk about what happened on Friday this week. Hopefully, he'll be in a position next week where he can talk and elaborate on exactly what happened to his car and the process that they're going through. The other one I'm talking about, Chris and his driver, Parker Kligerman, they won the Truck Series race on Friday, at least initially. They went through victory lane, burnouts, did all the media, and then as they were walking back to their hauler, I was actually with them. They got a phone call from NASCAR saying that the truck was too low in the back and it failed post-race inspection and they had been disqualified. Just a crushing, heartbreaking news for that little small team at Abbott. Chris is the only full-time employee at Henderson Motorsports. So many of the other people that work on that team, on that car, are volunteer or part-time workers, giving their time just because they love the sport. So obviously, that was tough for them. They are appealing the ruling, so we will know here in the next couple of weeks if they will actually get to keep the trophy. I know Parker has not let go of the flag, the checkered flag, regardless of what paper says, whether or not he's won the race. So we'll see what happens with those guys, but still just an unbelievable showing for them to open the season, and it looks like the reunion between Chris, Parker, and Henderson Motorsports is going to pay off, picking up right where they left off a couple of years ago. As far as what we're going to talk about in this week's podcast, Chris is going to talk about all the things you need to know to be ready for today's Daytona 500. We talk about rules changes and drivers moving around, so even though we don't get to talk about the truck race, at least yet, there's still tons to talk about. And then our guest for this week is a fun one. Shane van Gisbergen, SVG himself, the man who burst onto the scene a couple years ago, won his first race in NASCAR, the Cup Series on the streets of Chicago. He's now full-time in the Cup Series, so I had a chance to talk to SVG about being a rookie, about Daytona, just what it means for him to be racing over here in the United States. So that's going to be a fun conversation. Time to get this thing rolling. Joining us now for season 4 of the podcast, as always, is our crew chief, Chris Carrier, who is also the crew chief of the number 75 Food Country team in the Craftsman Truck Series. Short off season. Here we are, ma'am, ready to go. Lots going on in NASCAR. Let's start with, there's a lot of new people in new places. When you look at the teams, the new drivers, new crew chiefs, whatever, what team maybe are you looking at the most?
Well, it's kind of, we have a really good working relationship with Spire Motorsports on the truck side. Of course, we do a lot of business there. They do things for us. We're pretty closely connected. So the Cup team that I'm most interested in, I'm not telling you they're going to win the most races or anything like that, but what I'm most interested in is Spire, because they've had a ton of change at that race team, and they've taken a lot of steps to try to improve their racing. You know, I'm interested in seeing how Rodney Childers will do. He's got a young driver there in Justin Haley. I just tell everybody, I said, man, that kid is just a gas masher. That's what he is. He just goes and you know, Rodney is, in my opinion, Rodney Childers and Paul Wolf, in my opinion, they got to be right at the top of the group, to me, as the best crew chiefs. Now, there's a lot of other good ones out there that have a lot of success, but to me, those are the two, and those are the two that I can most connect with, because they're closer. They've both driven race cars, so they're not that I've driven, but they're closer to, like, they've got an old school feel to them, along with education, along with engineering support. A good friend of mine, Matt McCall, went to Spire, and he is over the. I won't say he's a competition director, but he's over the competition side of things, trying to find speed. He's really good. Matt,
I guess is technical director.
Technical director. So I don't know
Yeah.
what exactly his title is. He's not a crew chief. He's not the head of engineering. He's not the competition director, but he's there for a huge reason, and that's to help them go through their cars and find better ways to do this and find better ways to go faster. And he'll also be there to fill in if those guys have kind of figured this out. He's like, okay, if one of those crew chiefs can't be there for a weekend or so, you got Matt McCall sitting in. I mean, good night. That's like having, I don't know, it's like having Paul Pierce or somebody to be, a sub. Or it's just, it's to me that company has taken a lot of steps. They brought Michael McDowell, a very experienced driver, a very capable driver, to go along with Justin Haley that they got last year to add into that force. And I'm just really curious to see how that team's going to perform. I think you might see good things out of them. They're very highly connected to Hendrick Motorsports, and they're highly connected to Chevrolet. They have a great desire to up their game. So I'm thinking between that and also with the change with Denny Hamlin and his crew chief change.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you about.
I think maybe a little bit of surprise there, but I'm going to be curious to see how strong that 11 car is. And of course, there's a lot of things going on with the 2311 team that Denny is a part owner with, and how he's going to handle all this. The word on the street that there's more adversity goes on, that he becomes better. He gets that. So I think I'm not going to call it all adversity, but there's a lot of change going on for him. And I think him being the veteran driver, he looked really good at the Clash at Bowman Gray. Ran very well in the race. Made some big adjustments before qualifying that apparently picked her car up a whole lot. So the talent is there, the experience is there, the capabilities are there. Is this the season, even with all those changes and all those kind of adversity things in the back of his mind, is this the season Denny Hamlin can break out and win a championship finally? So a lot to watch in that respect. A lot of people moving around. Josh Berry in the 21 car. The Stuart Haas teams are kind of gone, but now Haas Racing is there with one car and Cole Custard. A lot of people are going to be watching that, and I heard comments from, I think, Kevin Harvick during the telecast of the Clash that they talked about Cole, and he said, it's going to be interesting to see how well that team can do as a one-car team, which is, yes, that's going to be a challenge. So a lot of things to look at, a lot of things to watch, a lot of questions to be answered. None of them are going to be answered completely at Daytona, but you might have a good idea where stuff's going.
Also, a ton of rule changes in the off season. I don't know what NASCAR would do if they didn't change things. I mean, they love the chaos, and some of them are interesting, some of them are good. I guess the one that I have the biggest question about was the one that was just announced yesterday.
Okay.
The Xfinity Fastest Lap Award, where they're going to award 1 point for the fastest lap. Your thoughts on that? Because it seems like it could be an opportunity to manipulate the race a little bit.
Yes. Now, more and more of our races are getting to be like restrictor plate races. The bigger tracks where guys can line up behind one another, and I can see this at Daytona, Talladega, Atlanta, Michigan, probably leaving a couple out, that there's going to be guys that you're not going to think are like even going to be in competition for that, but they're going to be somewhere during that race. They're going to be right behind a really good pack of good cars, and they're going to get the proverbial perfect draft, and they're going to suck up to those cars, and that one lap time is going to be huge. And for an example, at Talladega at the truck race, a truck that actually we sold to Norm Benning, who is 72 years old, I think. In that truck race, he finished 20th. He barely got in the race. A couple of trucks didn't get to make qualifying time, so he made it in. like I say, he finished 20th. He ran good all day. He did a great job. He had the fastest lap of the race. So with this rule, he would have got a playoff point or whatever.
Well, and then also for the teams, let's say we'll use Spire as an example.
Yes, ma'am.
And something happens, they have to change a part out, and Carson Hocevar goes 3 laps down. And Justin Haley is battling with Bubba Wallace to get into the playoffs. Could Justin Haley not go or could not Carson Hocevar go and put a qualifying setup and bust off a fast lap, take that point away from who's battling with his teammate?
That is very possible. There's a lot of things that could happen, just like you're saying, if you're not contending for the win and you're several laps down. You could come in and say, okay, we're going to take the grill off. We're going to cool this thing down. We'll put new tires on it. We'll pump the air pressure up. We'll do this and do that we're allowed to do that's going to give us a 1-lap speed that'll be huge. Now, 5 laps into it, we're going to be wrecking.
But they don't care.
They don't care.
Anyway,
they're going to go out and they're going to say, okay, we here's where we want to be.
And they wouldn't even have to help their teammate.
No.
Christopher Bell could have an issue, and he might be battling with somebody in a race and make up a point by that.
That's another, to me, that's going to be a thing of like.
It's going to be hard to police.
It's going to be hard to police. It is what it is. And at the end of the day, I think a few races in, there's going to be some concern about it, and there's going to be some arguments about it. There's going to be some people that don't like it. There's going to be probably some people that do like it. And at the end of the day, this is something that NASCAR's changed, and I think they expect to have, blah, blah, chatter about it. And you know what? If there is chatter about it, then the media is going to be talking about it. And people like me are going to be commenting about it. And I think that's what they like, because now you're talking about NASCAR racing. So is it a bad thing? I'm not going to say it's a bad thing. Is it different than what we used to do? Yeah, it's a way different. If they'd have come up with this back in the 80s, good night.
Yeah, but we used to award a point for leading 1 lap.
We did, and we also awarded 5 points for leading the most laps.
Right.
So, is that something we should go back to? I don't know. I think there's a lot of things when you've been in this as long as NASCAR. Then there's a lot of things you can think back to say, you know what, we used to do this, and people like that, and some way we got away from it. Maybe we need to do this. What they're doing now is something that's a little bit out there. But let's face it, Heather, there's a lot of things we do now that's a little bit out there. And there's a lot. Going to Bowman Gray to have a race was a little bit out there.
But it was
but
amazing.
They packed the stands.
It was amazing.
And I haven't seen the TV ratings, whatever. I haven't seen. I don't know. But they packed the stands, and the drivers, most of them during and at the end of the race were like, it's a good thing we came here. These fans deserve this, because they pack the stands every week and have for years. And they're true blood NASCAR fans, as it be. And they deserved for us to come here and put a cup race on here. And I liked what Chase Elliott said after he said it 2 or 3 times. He was talking to the fans over the PA, and he said, I hope we put a race on that made you guys happy, that you enjoyed, and it makes you want us to come back. He said, I hope the racing and the whole program was good enough. And I like that. I like, talking to the fans and saying, hey, our job here is to entertain you.
Yeah. And
that's the most important thing. And, I like the way he said that. I'm going to give him a pat on the back and a thumbs up for saying, hey, that's good that you reached out to the fans and kind of touched their hearts and said, I hope we did a good job for you.
So I want to go back to the changes. When you look at getting rid of the damaged vehicle policy clock, the cracking down on manufacturer alliances, manipulating the race, is there any of the other things, is there anything else in the changes that stands out to you big time?
Not really.
I mean, most of the rest of the stuff kind of seemed like little technical loophole filling, as it was.
I think personally, I think the part of trying to get a grasp on teammates, whether it be teammates that come out of the same building or teammates that have the same make of car or truck, whatever, helping one another and outright doing things to kind of manipulate the finish of the race. Personally, Heather, at this time, at this point, I think we need to curb that. I think we need to put I'm not sure about a screeching halt to it, but we need to make sure. I think NASCAR needs to make sure they're on top of that, and that's hard. That's difficult,
right?
And it's hard to do it. It's difficult to do it consistently and fair, and be right, and not do a knee-jerk decision. So it's hard, and I think though that the quicker they say, okay, guys, we're not putting up with this, don't do it, and if there's going to be some penalties, then I think people will get the idea, and they'll say, we just need to race our own race, and if my teammate comes up behind me and the guy he's competing with or I'm competing with for points position is behind him, I need to cut the same amount of slack for both, if they're going to
That's
lap
never
me.
going to happen.
That's probably never going to happen.
You can't prove that. I mean,
No,
because they'll have plausible
no.
deniability. I raced everybody hard. His car was just better than mine.
Yeah.
But I think it's the slowing down, the pulling over, the pit stops, that kind of stuff.
That kind of stuff needs to be looked at. And again, they will never stop it.
Right.
They're never going to stop it. But I think it needs to be wrangled in that at least the fans don't feel like, hey, I was cheated here because I didn't, this guy doing this and manipulated the finish, and so didn't get to win because of that. He did this or did that to bring caution out. I think we need to bring that in.
All right, so looking ahead to Daytona, obviously expect the unexpected, but I kind of feel like there's always a core group of guys that are going to be in contention, right? I mean, there are just people. I talked to Carson Hocevar at Spire at their media day, and he's like, my strategy going to super speedways is to ride around back and not get in trouble, come away with it on the lead lap. So, and there's always that group of guys that are not good at super speedways. So it feels like, even though we called a wild card race, there's a certain type of driver that's always in contention. So when you look at Daytona, what do you see from the field?
There, I guess if I was I'll be honest with you, if I was a betting man right now, I don't know what I would do. I don't know who I would think.
Always go with Denny Hamlin.
It's always Denny Hamlin.
He's so good there.
He is. And there's some, Brad Keselowski is a great plate racer. Joey Logano's a pretty good plate racer. We were
Bubba
talking.
Wallace.
Bubba Wallace is a great plate racer, and they always seem to have a fast car for him. There's so many. At the end of the day, Michael McDowell has run pretty good, and now he's again. We talked about him, and that team is like, I want to see what they have when they show up at Daytona, and if normally now, if one car in the team and the company runs good, they all run good. If one car has speed, they all have speed. And just remember, that team has a pretty tight connection now with Hendrick Motorsports, who, let's face it, Heather, they're always good at the speedways.
They're always really good at
Kyle
Daytona.
Larson, Chase Elliott, William Byron, Alex Bowman, and then you've got the Spire team that is they're kind of their left arm, so to speak. I think they're going to have fast cars, and I would not bet against them. And I think whatever company goes down there, whether it be Hendrick Motorsports and their allies, whether it be Penske Racing and the Wood Brothers, whether it be the Toyotas from Gibbs and 2311, I think you're going to look in the practice times and qualifying times, and all say, okay, this company came with their ducks in a row, and they're ahead of the rest of the field. You've got some wild card guys trying to make the field. Elio Castroneves is in a Trackhouse car, I believe.
He is, and he's already in for the high-level driver exemption. But the open field is insane.
Yes, it is.
Truex, Jimmy Johnson.
Yep.
You've got Anthony Alfredo in that beard card that always seems to show up at the
good.
super speedways.
Yep.
Corey LaJoie. the Project 66 or Garage 66 car, which I think that they're going to have one of the Truck Series racers. It was Garrett Smithley this weekend, but he's not in that car. But there's like 7 open cars, and most of them are really good cars.
Yeah. That will be wild. That will put it back to that kind of, shakes memories in my mind of the time when, the top 35 car owner points were guaranteed in, and then from 36 back wasn't. And come qualifying day, Heather, every week, every race, every weekend, here's about 14 cars trying to get 7 spots. And those 14 cars were good race cars. They were cars that showed up every week. Or it might have been a extra car from one of the big companies, and they got a good driver in it, and you're like, holy crap, this is not easy. So I think that's what it's going to be at Daytona. There's going to be some nail biting, and there'll also be the Thursday races will probably be pretty exciting because they could get in on that. So I'm just, I don't know. Daytona is going to be an interesting week. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to watch. There's a lot to look out for. There's a lot of questions to be answered. A lot of storylines going to be coming along, and then it's going to be, okay, who's going to win the Great American Race in 2025? And I'm not going to name a favorite. I wouldn't even know where to start. I wouldn't even know
just
where
when
to
you
start.
think you got it figured out at Daytona.
Just when you,
Derek Cope wins, so you never know.
That's right.
Trevor
Just when you think, oh, I know that, then it's like, okay, that didn't happen. So anyway, we'll see. Coming up on us like really quick.
Joining us now is SVG Shane van Gisbergen. First of all, thank you so much for your time, Shane. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
So you now have one race weekend under your belt in the Cup Series. I would say pretty successful. I don't know that a lot of people expected you to race your way right in under the heat, not have to do the LCQ or anything. How would you evaluate your first week down at Bowman Gray?
Yeah, we had a really good time. It's been a pretty full-on few weeks with the Rolex 24 and then getting ready for NASCAR stuff. But yeah, like we've got a whole new team on the 88. They're all from different teams last year, and all settling into the trackhouse style and integrating in there. So it was a really good, I guess, low-pressure weekend for everyone to learn each other, learn how everything works, and yeah, we had a lot of fun doing it. So obviously, when you run well, it helps. But the atmosphere and the team was really good, and I felt good in the car. And yeah, as you say, going straight to the heat was a nice achievement, and it was definitely good watching the LCQ rather than being in it.
Yeah, that was pretty wild for sure. You mentioned this kind of being low pressure.
Yep.
I'm assuming that was like a good dress rehearsal, considering the first race out of the gate is pretty high pressure because it's the biggest race of the year.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, obviously no points, and there's nothing really hanging on that race, so it was a good way to just approach it like that. And then, yeah, you always go good when you're enjoying yourself. So the next couple of weeks are the super speedway kind of races, and then we get into a road course. So pretty different sort of way to start a season with races like that. So it's going to be interesting to see how it goes.
So you were in Daytona last year. Of course, the 500 is a completely different animal than the other races over the weekend. How will you approach this week? Like as a rookie, as a guy who hasn't done a ton of super speedway racing, what's kind of the goal? What's the approach for the week?
I don't know. I don't really overcomplicate things. So I watch some tape, study it, try and understand how we're preparing the car and how to drive. But yeah, I try not to overthink things really. Just get in and do it. And last year I was there as a fan. Well, I raced in the Xfinity Series, but I got to take in the Cup race as a fan, and yeah, like it was an awesome experience to be there for that race, the pre-race show, and on the grid there. What a amazing atmosphere before a race. But yeah, as a driver now, I just guess treat it like every other race, and it's a huge race. You have to respect the scale of what the Daytona 500 is, but at the end of the day, it's just another car race. So yeah, I'll try not to get caught up in it as a driver.
That's interesting, kind of the approach. Do you think that part of that is the reason why you've been able to make this transition more smoother than others? I mean, there's been, Mark Sambros came over and he had some success, but even he didn't have the kind of success out of the gate that you've had in this series. So do you think that approach has been part of the reason why?
Um, I don't know. It's just always how I have been. Like, obviously, you can't really say Daytona 500 is just another race. Like, it's a massive deal here. But yeah, you just gotta. I don't know. I try and approach every weekend like the same, because we go to a small race the next week. You still got to get that same hype and that same energy out of it. So I try and be level about whatever race it is.
The road courses, I'm sure you have week 3 on the schedule circled for you. Is there extra pressure because you've been so good on the road courses to come out and perform?
Only for you guys, from you guys, but yeah, I try and just do my thing. But obviously, road courses, we know we're going to be pretty speedy at them. But yeah, my real focus is to be competitive every week. So intermediate ovals are probably my biggest weakness, and that's my biggest focus. That's what I'm trying so hard to improve at. But yeah, the road courses, naturally, it's all I've ever done. So I'll be pretty decent at them, I think.
So as you try to improve on the ovals, do you lean on your teammates at Trackhouse? How do you, I mean, obviously a lot of sim time, but how do you make those steps?
Oh, it's all of the above. Yeah, sim time, videos, watching my teammates' data, and picking their brains as much as I can. And then it's just track time. Like, I think I only did one intermediate race really in the Cup cars last year. It was all Xfinity stuff, and the cars are very different. Similar, but yeah, it's just experience. I just need more seat time, and I just need to get comfortable with the speed everything happens, the way the track changes, and the banking. It's so different to any other type of racing in the world.
How is the Trackhouse experience? Because to me, you and Ross and Daniel all have very different personalities. But
Yeah.
I mean, at least with the two of them, it seemed to work, even though they're completely different animals. How does that all work?
Yeah, this is a pretty interesting dynamic. All different places we're from and how we approach the racing, but we've all got the same goal. We all want to win, but it's bigger than just the three of us. There's 180 people at Trackhouse that want to win as well. So you got to focus on the team first before trying to beat each other. And I think this year it's been a great start to the year. How hard and close we've been working on the simulator and our setups at Bowman Gray and how we race each other on the track. I think as a team we're racing and performing really well. So that's the aim first. We've got to get the team up the front before we try and take on each other. Yeah.
For my final thought, I want to talk about just how the week's gone. We touched a little bit on Chris and his team's situation being disqualified on Friday, but it's really just been an odd week to begin with. Qualifying was fine. Chase Briscoe wins the pole. First duel, fine. Bubba Wallace wins that. Second duel, a little bit of controversy at the end. Checker flag comes out. Yellow flag comes out. Everybody thinks Eric Jones is the winner. Does the burnouts, gets excited, and then NASCAR says, "Oh no, the yellow flag came out before they crossed the start-finish line, and Austin Cindric was the winner." Again, we talked about what happened on Friday with Parker and Chris, and then Saturday again, caution on the final lap. Jesse Love wins that race. It's been pretty eventful. So hopefully today will be calmer. Will be less judgment called filled, because the season has got off to a fantastic start. The Clash at Bowman Gray was unbelievable. It was such good racing. It was such a great event. You just hate to see speed weeks kind of go off the way that it has. So we need a banger of a finish, a good time, a great race, because I think 2025 could be an amazing year for NASCAR. Thanks for joining us on the Backstretch. We'll see you next week.